Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in for the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today I've prepared another quick list video for all of you. Today we're talking about 10 DC comics more people need to read. My selections might be a little bit off the beaten path, but that is by design. I didn't necessarily go for everyone's go-to DC comic recommendations, but rather a selection that I still think are very fun that less people actually talk about. Can't wait to get started today, but before we do, I just want to shout out our channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, I highly encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link for it in this video's description, and if you find something you like, you can even use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, and save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate code or link to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's list video. First up today, in no particular order, we have Batman: Their Dark Designs by James Tynion IV and Gilliam March. For those that might be unaware, this is the start of James Tynion's proper Batman comic book run. Before this, he had smaller other Batman roles. He also had an extensive run on Detective Comics, but this is when he was really given the full reins for Batman. This also does take place sometime after that Tom King Batman Rebirth era. Anyway, Their Dark Designs is considered the volume 1 for the run, but it can also be read in many ways as a standalone story. As well, in the very end, almost a slight prelude to the Joker War, which is the very next story arc. What's a bit funny to me is I remember when this run was kind of going for Tynion, I was waiting for these collected editions, so I was a little bit behind on Batman, but by and large what got the most amount of press were the kind of arguably bigger events that occurred during Tynion's era, which were Joker War and Fear State. Why that's a bit amusing to me is because Their Dark Designs is actually my favorite of the Tynion era Batman stories. This is a really fun kind of, let's call it, mystery storyline. We not only have Batman facing off some of the DC Universe's greatest assassins, but we also have this kind of criminal conspiracy that's meant to take down Gotham and destabilize Batman that goes years back, with a kind of cabal of villains that include characters like the Joker and Penguin and Riddler and Selina Kyle's Catwoman. It's just a really, really fun mystery that goes back between this previous kind of flashback story arc to the modern day. And I think with the character of Selina Kyle, Catwoman, who has a kind of on and off again sort of romantic angle recently with Batman, having her in a flashback being more of a villainess made this a really compelling and conflicting story. The art throughout this by March is absolutely gripping, one of my favorite illustrators for Batman. It is just jaw-droppingly beautiful all the way throughout. I think how they depict the Riddler too, with this kind of curved spine that looks like a question mark, it's just haunting and creepy looking, and overall I just can't overstate how much I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, the very, very end of it does feel like a lead-in to Joker War, which occurs next, but by and large, that kind of unraveling the mystery of the past and who's behind it and how does Batman save Gotham and kind of figure out this crisis, it just had all of the elements that made a great Batman story, at least in my mind. I particularly like the emphasis on kind of detective work and trying to unravel this mystery, along with just the crazy action sequences. It was wonderful. This story arc, I believe, also introduced Punchline, Joker's new kind of protege. We have a great fight between Punchline and Harley Quinn occur in this volume. Overall, this is just a really stand-up collection. Like I said, it's my high point for the Tynion era Batman, although I really do speak highly as well about what I've read from his Detective Comics run, and some of his other nooks and crannies in the Batman universe. And the rest of his proper run here is also quite good as well, but Their Dark Designs just really is a standout for me. Next on our list of DC books more people need to read, I'm going to go with Shazam: The Monster Society of Evil by Geoff Smith. If you're unfamiliar with Geoff Smith, he's probably most well known in this comic book sphere for creating Bone. His unique kind of cartoony illustration style is very, very well recognized. Bone is like this epic, cartoony version of kind of a Lord of the Rings-like quest or saga. Really fun book from what I've read of that. But over here, he's taking his his shot at Shazam, Captain Marvel here for DC Comics, and this is a very fun read. This is definitely in the category of an all-ages comic book read. I think that you could easily give this to young children to enjoy, as well as older adults. I know for me, I didn't read this until my adulthood, and I still thoroughly enjoyed it. Yes, the illustration style is very rounded, cartoony, childlike in many ways. There's even a lot of kind of plot trappings and very visually, just recognizably children's fiction about this book, and yet there is still some good degree of nuance. I think longer-term fans of Captain Marvel, Shazam, will appreciate this book as well. It definitely throws back to some of the favorite characters from this mythos. Dr. Sivana, we have some of the Marvel family, we have the Rock of Eternity, we have so many of these iconic elements. This is, in many ways, kind of an origin story, his first encounter with some of these villains, and it's just a lot of fun. And even at the beginning of each issue, they have the kind of like secret decoder message to kind of unscramble the title of the issue using kind of a little cipher they give you. There's just so much about this that, again, it feels like an all-ages comic book. And I'm not showcasing it in this video, although I believe I've done a full review of this on the channel. Hopefully I have. If so, I'll try to link it. But the actual dust jacket for this book is actually a gigantic poster. How cool is that? But yeah, this is a really fun read that I think I wanted to recommend, again, for that all-ages quality. I'm aware that most of the viewers of my channel are adults, but I think that even adults can really enjoy kind of a childlike book here and there. And honestly, this has it in spades. It just really works. And there's enough Geoff Smith-isms that I just really see why this guy is such a profoundly good comic book writer. And illustrator, frankly. I always love when these creators do double duty, and I think Geoff Smith does an incredible work here. Now, I will say I'm not a huge Captain Marvel, Shazam historian by any means. I frankly only really read this and the Geoff Johns Shazam stuff in around the New 52, as well as seeing him show up in different incarnations or other crossovers and things throughout the DC universe. But this is just a standout. I've had it in my collection for years now, and I think about it quite frequently. Definitely one I can comfortably recommend to all of you. And hey, if you're watching this video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I just want to encourage you to do so. I'm always doing list videos like this, comic book reviews, hauls, and other comic book miscellany. At any rate, thank you for considering. Now on with the show. Next on this list, I'm going to be talking about Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1 by Gabriel Hardman and Karina Becco. So this is part of DC's Earth 1 line. For those unfamiliar with it, they're kind of these standalone graphic novels. They weren't released as issues, but rather, again, graphic novels. They did a few of these. They did three actually, for Batman, 3 for Superman, 2 for Green Lantern, Teen Titans 1 or 2, and then I think a couple for Wonder Woman as well. I think that's all of it. I'm still making my way through all these Earth 1 titles, but from those I've read, this is a line of DC Comics I think is super underrated. In many ways, I think it's analogous to something like the Marvel Ultimates universe, where we have just a separate kind of side universe within the DC Comics. They kind of contemporize their origins, and they just give us some great standalone stories. I wish that this initiative went on longer, because honestly, every entry so far I've read from Earth 1 has been fantastic, this one included, and I guess you never know what the future may hold. But yes, this is a Green Lantern origin retelling. It's a kind of back to basics, just rehashing of that origin. We have Hal Jordan kind of being an astronaut of sorts. He stumbles across an alien spaceship where we find presumably a dead Abin Sur. He gets the Green Lantern ring. They definitely take some liberties and change some of this origin for sure, but he's empowered by the Green Lantern. He encounters Kilowog and some of these other lanterns. There's a lot of good hero versus villain kind of stuff. Ultimately, this does feel just like a straight science fiction fantasy storyline, which is how I like my Green Lantern. I will honestly say it doesn't feel as much like a superhero narrative, and I think that that's perfectly fine. I think that this is a great entry point for brand new readers to this property. If you've always thought culturally maybe Green Lantern sounds interesting, but I don't know where to start, or I don't want to be bogged down by too much reading or too much continuity I have to pay attention to, I think that this is a great way to just have a fantastic one and done Green Lantern read and feel like you get to know a little bit about this character. The art from Gabriel Hardman as well is an absolute incredible standout for me. I also love the coloring on this. It's just such an immersive style of art. I don't even know how to describe it. It's unlike much art style I've seen. There's a lot of kind of jagged line work, but a lot of just rich detail. And all the lighting, colored effects we get around any usage of the Green Lantern power or the rings, it's just really beautiful to behold. This book really surprised me just how much I thoroughly enjoyed it. This was one I was hoping to read for some time, and I believe I found this in a used bookstore this past year or so. Anyway, a fantastic book that I just don't hear enough people talking about. And the few I have, it's been pretty polarizing. Some people either love it like myself or just think it's pretty awful. I definitely think it's a really fun approach to this character, and it's a great one-and-done graphic novel kind of read. If you're looking for something that you want to read in DC that you maybe haven't taken a look at, definitely recommend Green Lantern Earth 1. Next up, I'm going all the way back to the Silver Age of comics, and we're going to be talking about Flash, the Silver Age Volume 1. This is a paperback, and it includes the first, couple issues of the Flash from his Silver Age title. I don't know, maybe 20 issues or so, give or take. So this is the origins of Barry Allen's Flash. No, this is not the Golden Age Flash, Jay Garrick, nor is it the later Flash, Wally West, or any of the subsequent Flashes after that. No, this is Barry Allen, and we start with his very origin issue. Why I included this on the list is that I wanted the Silver Age represented somewhere because I think that there's a whole bunch of readers that only read modern comic books. And while I certainly understand the appeal, I think that there's a whole batch of these older Golden or Silver Age or even Bronze Age stories that are really undiscovered by people who already love this medium that really should just look back and check out what this era of comic storytelling can offer. I will say, yes, it is clearly dated. Yes, the narrative style is quite a bit different than what we see in modern comics. But all that being said, this is a quintessential comic reading experience in my mind. The art is really gripping and interesting. The way they convey motion and character models is fascinating. I love just the flashes of color we get throughout this work. It is really quite beautiful. This edition even gives us the introduction for some of our favorite Flash rogues gallery of villains, and overall, I really just can't commend it enough. Yes, again, it is a little bit dated, and it feels a little bit clunkier. It's not as fast moving. A lot of the issues are very episodic, standalone, but it's still so much fun. If you're a Silver Age enthusiast, I hope this is one you've already read. If not, I even more highly recommend it for you. But if you're someone who's read only real modern comics but you want to give it a shot, this is one of my favorite DC Silver Age titles. And I do have the paperback here, but I know they've also released omnibus editions for this era along with various other collections. You could probably find it digitally as well, but I just think it's really fun. There is a quaintness to this style of comic book storytelling and the artwork certainly, but I just think it's really gripping. I also particularly like the Flash entries because when I first read some of these issues, I read them in the old DC Showcase Presents volumes, which for those that are unfamiliar, they were these black and white reprints that were on this kind of brown, really old, kind of cheap paper. But at the time, they were the only way I could really reread some of these early issues. This was before we had kind of a lot of these omnibus releases or digital was really prevalent. Anyway, I really enjoyed the stories back then, but when I was able to get this collection and see some of those same issues in full color, I was blown away. I cannot believe how much color really added to the table with a lot of these classic stories, and for that reason, amongst so many others, this is definitely a recommend-worthy book to me. I think that more people should definitely appreciate the history of some of these popular mainstream characters, and the Flash Silver Age books, well, they're just a lot of fun. Last but certainly not least on our list today, we have Superman's Secret Origin by Geoff Johns and Gary Frank. Here I have the deluxe edition. I think at the time of the recording, I believe this could be out of print. I'm not really certain, but this is a fantastic look at Superman. For whatever reason, Superman is a character who has so many different comic book origin stories and origin story retellings, and yet I never get sick of it. There's been so many wonderful ones. I know things like Superman American Alien, Superman Birthright, Superman Earth 1, to name just a few, even the Man of Steel miniseries from John Byrne. Just so many retellings of this classic origin. And this book here is easily amongst my favorites. Geoff John is just a staple comic book writer, particularly for DC. I've long said about him, while some of his books are my absolute favorites, there are a couple that are just good, but I almost never read a bad Geoff Johns book. I always at least enjoy his books, and this is no exception. Teaming him up with the incredible Gary Frank is a masterstroke as well. If you've been a fan of what they've been doing recently over at Image Comics with Geiger and Junkyard Joe and the rest of that unnamed universe, you'll definitely recognize this creative dynamic duo. But this was one of my first exposures to this creative team, and honestly, it is a blast. We have Superman's origin, and we have a Superman that looks suspiciously like Christopher Reeve, and that's a really wonderful thing to see depicted here. We have his humble origins in Smallville, we have kind of an introduction to Lex Luthor, and we even have the Legion of Superheroes. This really takes us on a fun ride, and honestly, it just has gorgeous artwork throughout. There's something about Superman that always screams Americana to me, and I just really feel that reading a book like this. Well, I should say Americana, except for maybe Superman Red Sun, when we have the kind of Russian Superman. Anyway, another great book, but not part of this video. Back to Secret Origins, I just think that this is really well done. The art just jumps off the page without a doubt. This edition is an oversized hardcover, which I always love to see, especially with that Gary Frank artwork. And again, there's something about seeing Christopher Reeves kind of as the character model for this Clark Kent Superman that really feels absolutely nostalgic and heartwarming all at the same time. I think Geoff Johns really understands character voice, pacing, and what makes a comic book superhero narrative just really gripping and entertaining. He gets characters, he gets these characters, and for those reasons, this really works. Even as I look through the pages of this book for the sake of this video, it occurs to me that I am really due for a reread of this incredible title. If you'd like to see a full review of it in the future on this channel, definitely let me know in the comments. I'd also like to hear if you've read this and enjoy it, or generally, what is your favorite Superman origin story? Always love to talk Superman with people out there. Anyway, if you've never read it, I highly recommend trying to find Superman Secret Origin. Without a doubt, a DC must-read recommendation from me. Okay, and that's already going to round up our list of 5 DC comics more people need to read. I tried to do a kind of just mix and match of some of the mainstream popular characters. I tried to mix the eras and the comic book creators involved so that you get a little bit of everything, and hopefully we find some new winners for you. I'm still really enjoying making these comic book lists for all of you. In the comments, I'd love to hear what are some of your must-read DC comics that maybe not a lot of people recommend. What are those hidden gem DC books that you'd recommend to almost anybody? I'd love to hear about those in the comments. For longer-term fans of this channel, you might know that I am more of a Marvel Comics fan, but I still have a huge love for DC Comics, particularly Batman and Superman, but I'm always down for more recommendations. So thank you very much for considering leaving those in the comments. And as always, a heartfelt thank you for watching this video. Until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave a like, that comment we talked about, and maybe check out one of my other videos on your way out. Thanks so much and have a good one.